Yeah, it's the routine. That's leather. Yeah, it's down.
It's been an interesting week.
I've had several.
Sherman.
I was gonna say, this is getting to be habit forming, these little jobs.
I'm more done. I
It's still going on.
It's steady.
I'm not done yet. Hopefully tomorrow will be.
I gotta run and have my tire checked out, my new tires, to see why my tire in the back is leaking. Hi, well, thank you. Merry Christmas. Yeah,
For you.
Conrad's, I've had them from there before, never had any problems before. So I've had put air in it several times.
Whatever it is.
That's what I'm thinking.
Does that have the one that tells you what the
The air,
pressure is in each
it
tire?
doesn't tell what the pressure is, it just tells you if one's low. Doesn't tell you which one's low.
They gotta be super, super clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of them, if you're in them.
I can fix that for you for $70. But you gotta take the wheel off next to the valve and run inside the wheel.
Yeah. Well, supposedly, if there's a problem with them, they're supposed to take care of it for free. So,
Yeah, they should.
It's a lifetime guarantee.
well, yeah, the lifetime of the guarantee.
Yeah,
They said the
when they
guarantee-
can't fix it
Lifetime
anymore,
of the
that's,
guarantee expired yesterday,
yeah, when they
sorry.
can't fix it anymore, that's the end
A
of its
lifetime,
life.
yeah. So, good evening.
We were talking.
I guess we'll get a few more people in and then we'll pray. But yeah, so I gotta go in tomorrow, at least they can get me in right away. I gotta be in there 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Run it up on the lift and pull the tire off and look at it. And he said, well, they're gonna check first to see if there's something in it. And, yeah, because I mean, it's entirely possible that I drove out of there and picked something up right away. But I think it's more likely that it's just not seated properly in some fashion, it's leaking slowly.
Put a new set tire on it.
Yeah, just before Thanksgiving, and I put air in them 3 times. And
Kim gonna be home in the morning?
she's actually going with me, so we're gonna try and run some errands while we're out, so.
Hey, Pastor.
How you doing?
That is good.
Good. All right,
Excellent.
Where were you at in Colorado?
Grand Junction,
oh, okay.
Mesa County.
I went to school in Fort Collins, so.
Myra, got your bag up here. Oh, yeah, we passed that thing.
Yeah, my roommate was from Colorado Springs, and then one of my dad's cousins lived up on the west side of Pikes Peak. I forget the name of that little town is, so. And I worked one summer in the Indian Peaks Wilderness area, just south of the Roosevelt, or the Rocky Mountain National Park in the Roosevelt National Forest.
You know where Mesa, Grand Mesa is?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of where we go up there.
yeah.
We don't ski or anything, we just go to get away. Very patriotic little area, very,
Yeah, that's a nice area back up in there. All right.
want to pray in
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pray while we got most people in here, and then, after that, feel free to jump into everything, but we'll go ahead and pray, so let's do that. Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you so much again for a place to meet tonight, and thank you again for a reason to meet as we think of Christmas coming up a week from today. We think of celebrating the birth of our Savior. Father, we just pray that you bless our time together tonight, bless the fellowship, Lord, bless the refreshments, we thank you for them. And Lord, most of all, bless the time we spend in your word. We just pray for your spirit to guide us and direct us and to give us insight and understanding into not only the scriptures, but also in understanding what's happening in the world around us in relation to the scriptures. Father, bless our time together tonight. Bless each one that's here. Be with those unable to be with us tonight. Also pray for those that are on the YouTube joining us through that, watching through YouTube. We just pray that we be a blessing to somebody this evening. We could point people that are searching to Christ and encourage believers in their walk with you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. So anything happening in the news? That's like almost like a running joke now at this point.
In the slow news
Yeah,
minute.
it's been a slow news minute, yeah. No, I can't say that it has. It's been a slow news second. It's like every time I go to turn my computer off, something new pops up.
Yeah.
And, oh, there's all kinds of stuff that, the DNI report was due today.
It's delayed.
Well, but we don't get to see it anyways, because it's a classified report. It's not gonna be until much later we see the unclassified version. But there's one group saying, oh, Ratcliffe wasn't gonna sign it because he's a victim of the deep state himself now. But the other one, he's not gonna sign it because the people in there that didn't want to weigh in on the Chinese threat. He wanted to have some, pros and cons of it, and he doesn't want to sign off an incomplete report, because that's what happened with the previous report in 2016. It was an incomplete report, and then they used that to bludgeon Trump with it. And so he doesn't want it to be a report, so that's one thing that's going on. And then, who's that other guy, Peter, no, not Struck, Navarro, or Navarro. He put his report out, which he's got tons of stuff in there. And there's several representatives who have all signed on to the thing of protesting against the accepting of the electoral vote on January 6th. And there's several senators. Not the least of which is a new senator who will be coming in, and he came in basically as a Tea Party type guy, and he's going to object. So that means that it's looking more and more likely that on January 6th, we may see a series of challenges. And my understanding more and more is that they do each one separate. Vice President Pence, because he's the president of the Senate, he opens the vote, he reads them, and they're tallying them. And any senator and representative can object. And
Who objects first?
I think the representative has to, because it's in the House.
Then he has to pick up
And then a senator has to essentially second it. Then what happens is they go back to their respective chambers, and they get a couple of hours to review and debate as to whether or not they should accept those electoral votes. Now, the interesting thing is, when they come to vote on whether to accept them or not, thank you, in the House, I guess what the case is, each state's delegation votes one vote.
Yay.
Which means the new House will have, it looks like 30 states dominated by Republicans.
House or the Senate?
House, 30 states delegations will be dominated by the Republicans. Which means 30 to 20 plus one, because DC gets a vote in this for some reason. So but whatever the case is, it looks like there's a comfortable majority in the case of these. I think they're kind of tight because this next chair looks better. There's looks like there would be enough challenges to potentially unseat enough electoral votes that neither candidate would get 270. Which means then, of course, the House will then vote for president along state lines. Each state gets one vote. And if they vote along party lines, that would be 30 to 20. President Trump would win. But also another potential, apparently, is that if the debate runs on beyond the 6th, they can go as long as the 18th. And if they cannot come to a vote by the 18th, then that's it. The House picks the president and the Senate picks the vice president, which again gives the advantage to President Trump. With all of the things coming out, of course, people who only watch CNN, and now I have to add Fox News, for the most part, are totally ignorant of all of what we're talking about here.
Right.
It amazes me. I encountered people that have no clue what we're talking about. There's a survey that said that half of the voters think that there was fraud in the election, and over half of the people surveyed were Democrats. So, and that's interesting. And also, I think there's a percentage of Democrats. I can't remember the percentage now, but they were not at all aware of the Hunter Biden laptop and connections to China before the election. They had no clue.
Yeah.
That's because CNN was not covering
I
it.
know.
MSNBC, no, well, what they did say on CNN and MSNBC was, well, there's a story out here, but there's nothing to it. It's Russian disinformation. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Willingly ignorant.
Yeah, that's what it is. And also,
Big tech.
it's been shown that Google, when you do a Google search, has steered people away or into certain things, saying it's all a sham.
Yes.
Facebook, if anybody's ever been Facebook fact check, that's what they're doing. They're saying, oh, that stuff isn't real. And, YouTube's been going and taking away videos that talk about it, just dropping them. That's why Rumble is the place to go now, rumble.com. And it's just like Twitter's not letting people post these things. I was listening to somebody on line last night, and they were on live, and they said, I'm going to try and post this on Twitter. And they said, well, look at that. Twitter won't post it. They won't let me post it. Let me try Parler. Oh, there it is. And I looked on my Parler thing, and whoop, it popped right up.
What I'm thinking is, remember all the pressure that the senator from West Virginia got? He didn't go along with Trump, the Democrat. It's like you can feel it in the air because it's like all these other, because Kyle got up there and he basically said, let's not go down this road. And I think Ted Cruz basically told him to shut up.
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting because
Ted Cruz is beside himself. He's like, this is why we didn't have those machines in Texas.
well, there's also evidence that the governor of Georgia, I believe it was,
He hit a
took
whole
some
bunch of stuff.
money, some payments in order to use the Dominion system in his state. And then, of course, the Texas suit that was joined by 20-some states that the Supreme Court would not take because of Chief Justice Roberts, who, according to many reports, was ranting and raving and screaming at the other justices about not even entertaining this. There's a picture circulating online that's got several people at the beach. You say, well, what's wrong with that? And there's Chief Justice Roberts. Here's somebody here, and there's Bill Clinton, and here's a few other guys. You say, well, what's wrong with that? He was at the beach, and Bill Clinton was there. The location of the beach, it was Jeffrey Epstein's island. Yeah, maybe that's why Chief Justice Roberts is
There was something going on.
Anti-Trump.
goes so far and then goes whoop, over to the left. That's so far, and then when in the clinch, whoop, over to the left. Maybe that's why he said, Obamacare. Even though Obama's arguing that it's not a tax, and they can't institute it if it's a tax, unless it's a tax, I decree that it's actually a tax. So it's now constitutional.
Dirt on him, or he's actually with him?
He was on Epstein's island.
So do you think he's actually with him, or if they got dirt on
The
him?
only reason you'd be on Epstein's island is if you were there to join in the festivities. That's the only type
You were
of people.
totally
like
ignorant,
fishing?
in which case, how's that any better?
Because apparently the trip to Epstein's island started on the airplane with people that were there to make your trip more enjoyable. Yeah, so underage people.
So that's what, okay.
That appears to be, and it also appears that perhaps the adoption of his one child was not quite on the up and up.
I heard that one. Yeah.
That was the one I heard first.
Yeah.
But this picture with him now could be the picture was taken off Martha's Vineyard. I don't know for sure. But
What about that woman that Maxell or his
Oh, she is still hiding somewhere, so apparently Hillary's not visited her yet.
Now, what's interesting is that after she was arrested, did you notice that they have had probably 400?
Findings of children.
Yes.
Yeah, they're breaking up these pedophile rings all over the place since she's been in custody. Now, of course, if you listen to the other side, now, it's just coincidence. They've always been breaking up these rings, which is true, but there just seems to be a lot more.
Oh, what's that? U.S. Marshal out of Cleveland? Oh, I can't think of his name off the bat. But they got what, like almost like 200 kids, underage kids that they actually went and rescued?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a coincidence. I mean, unless I got hit by a cinder block on my way in here, who knows? But yeah. Now, can they get Roberts to recuse himself? Can they force him to do that?
He's the chief justice, that'd be pretty tough to do.
Yeah, I mean, he can technically be impeached, but
Oh, really?
if they go into the 14th Amendment and they start removing people because they've been consorting with enemies of the Constitution in this country, like China.
Yep.
He can be removed from office.
Now that requires what, military tribunal, right?
Not to do that,
Civilian military or,
not just the regular courts can do that.
okay.
That's regular without military tribunals and all. But
Now, how does that,
if they go to martial law, then the military tribunals can certainly do that. And supposedly they've got lists of people. And now we've got, thanks to the Australians, somebody leaked over 2,000 Chinese Communist Party members.
living here in
that
the
are-
States?
Well, not all of them are in the States. They're all over the world, but there's a lot of them here.
Mhm.
And apparently Swalwell, and if you recall, Swalwell was one of the leaders of the Trump consorted with the Russians. Trump
Yeah.
must be impeached.
Yep.
While he was having a fling with a Chinese intelligence agent. Bang, bang. You can't make these names up, it's true. And apparently in 2015, Swalwell was advised of the situation with Bang Bang. And shortly after that, she abruptly disappeared and ran off to China, as if somebody, Swalwell, told her. I couldn't imagine whether or not anybody would guess Swalwell told her. But apparently, she took off, and Nancy Pelosi, knowing also that he was involved with a Chinese intelligence agent who put another Chinese operative on as a intern in his office, she puts him on the House Intelligence Committee.
He
Now,
didn't do nothing wrong.
in order to get the clearance that he needs to be on that committee, you have to fill out this, not just multi-page, but it's like a book. It's a long form, and it's got page after page. You have to detail all kinds of stuff in there. Have you ever lived outside of the country? You have to list everywhere you lived since you were born, basically.
People you know.
I know this because I've done it. You list everywhere you lived since you've been born.
And
You
know,
and
right?
people you know, and any people you've been in contact with that aren't Americans. You know, I had to list people. I knew some people who were from England. They moved up the road from my parents, and they weren't Americans. So I had to list them as, yeah, I know these British people, and anybody that I met, I had to list. You know, and it's just you just got this huge thing. But you know what happens if you're a member of Congress? You don't have to do that. If you're appointed to the House Intelligence Committee, you just show up and you're granted the clearance. This is unreal.
Yeah.
Swalwell could not get that level. He couldn't even get a secret clearance with all the stuff that he's involved in. And yet he had clearance to our most sensitive data. So I know what kind of a clearance he had. And it's just unbelievable. And Nancy Pelosi, knowing the situation, put him there. What does that tell you about Nancy Pelosi and what they're doing? And then we just had this massive cyber attack, if anybody's been following that,
On the electrical
against
grid.
against the federal government and private companies. But the part against the federal government demonstrates that the people in the CIA that were supposed to be guarding against this weren't.
Yep.
Why? Because they were too busy promoting the Russia-Trump narrative and covering their own selves. And we've had probably the worst loss of sensitive information our country's ever had. And so what is CNN talking about?
No foreign influence.
Well, they're not even, they're talking about silliness, you know? And so they're talking about what kind of ice cream does Biden like, you know, or some nonsense.
And he only
So-
used one scoop instead
Yeah.
of that notorious two scoop.
Yeah. And so here we are, one of the things that they especially dug into was the Department of Energy looking at our infrastructure, what it would, you know, knowing where the sensitive and critical nodes of the infrastructure are. Because you don't have to set off a massive electromagnetic pulse attack against the United States to take out our infrastructure. You only need to take out half a dozen or more key nodes in the network and you crash the whole system. So they're going through there. You have to assume they know what our weaknesses are. They know what things we have guarding it. They know how to get around it now. Everything's open to them. They have to assume they have everything because they've been in the system apparently for months or perhaps years. And now we just found out. So
700 Club's been telling them exactly the college that they have are far advanced to try and stop that cyber stuff. And they were supposed to have made a pact with the government.
yeah,
Teach them how to stop that. And that's a year and a half ago.
so
You see what happened?
yeah.
Nothing. They
Well,
didn't do anything.
on the way up here, or over here, Kim and I were talking, saying, well, if Biden gets president, they won't need to do an infrastructure attack.
Why is the
Because they're already talking about their investment in Biden and the return they're gonna get on their investment. The Ayatollah and the mullahs in Iran are talking about the good things they're gonna get from a Biden administration.
You don't need to put a bomb on the airplane if you got one of your guys in the cockpit.
No, I mean, you know,
That's right.
if you've already seized control, why do you have to blow it up? So the only thing, you know, the scenario really that works real well for an infrastructure attack, whether it's an electromagnetic pulse attack or just a physical attack upon key facilities, which could be done because they have those containers that have missile launch systems in them. They could be sitting right next door there at Pilot, and there could be a trailer sitting right there that has missiles in it, ready to launch. And you would never know it because it looks just like a container until they activate it and the top opens up and the missile tubes raise up. And they could launch from right there. A truck sitting out in the parking lot out here could be one, opens up and launch from right here.
It
And
takes them 30 minutes to set it up.
it's already set up. They just have to activate it and it takes a few seconds to open the doors and raise the thing up.
I know, I heard them talking about that the other night. They said it takes them about 30 minutes to set it up.
Not the ones they got now. They can set them up there. I mean, once they're in place, if they're already parked, all they have to do is open the doors and activate it. And I mean, it'd take a few minutes unless it's already, unless they have to also code in the, you know, the where it has to go target. But if it's already targeted and ready to go, they just have to activate it. And
We're good.
it takes a few minutes to watch the demonstration online. I mean, it just opens up, the thing comes up, and once it's locked into place, they can shoot multiple rockets. You know, you could, and just any number of things that you can do. And It could be chemical, could be anything, could be conventional explosions. You can take out the grid with conventional explosions if you take out the right nodes.
That's gonna be that peace and safety and that sudden destruction stuff.
It could be.
And like what caused the blackout, what was that, back in 2003, a tree limb?
Really wasn't. It was because they cranked up the power too much on a test project.
That's
Oh,
what
that's what
Daniel
that
was
was.
so worried about.
Yeah. I had a brother who was working there at the time. Yeah.
And I was gonna say, Mitch McConnell, I watched the Fox 8 and 38 a lot. Channels, and he congratulated Biden on it. So, so
A little too premature.
He's a rhino.
I appreciate all he did for getting the judges in place, but I think he's trying to line his own nest in case he doesn't think anything's gonna happen he wants to ingratiate himself. Just like more close to home, and you've been following the saga of Senate Bill 311. It passed handily in the Senate, went to the House, passed handily in the Ohio House, went to the governor's desk. He was mad that they even passed it. He vetoed it, but he waited until the very end of his window. If he'd have waited any longer, it would have taken effect without his signature. So he vetoed it at the last minute. Then it has to go to the House of Origin, and they have to override the veto first, then it goes to the other house, they have to override the veto. So it has to go to the Senate. The Senate has the votes right now to override the veto. Larry Obhoff, who's supposed to be the staunch conservative from Medina, who's the president of the Senate, he is currently not talking to anybody, and they are not bringing it up for a vote in the Ohio Senate. And my understanding until this morning was that yesterday was the last time to do it. But I guess they are going to be open for a few things this coming week, both the Senate and the House. But they were saying yesterday was the last time to do it because they thought today would be the last day for the House to take it up. And then they're going to close for Christmas, then it'll be the end of the year, and it's also the end of the session. So if it doesn't get overridden in the House by the end of the month, it's a new session, so it's all dead. So why is Obhoff dragging his feet when they know they have the votes?
Was he on the beach too?
Yeah, I was wondering about that. He might be one of those other guys. No, he's expecting, because he's term limited out, they believe he's angling for a judgeship appointment by DeWine.
Oh, no.
Why do you want to anger DeWine if you want to be a judge and rein his dictatorial powers in? See, this is where we have to pray for our country. Pray for our country locally, the county level, the state level, and
The wickedness
The
in high places.
national level. And by way of a minor victory, what these guys do on Saturday, a lot of times people don't think that makes any difference. Well, Akron City Council had passed this thing, remember? Real draconian, can't go out, can't have people over, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It expired last week. And the Akron City Council decided not to bring it up for an extension. Their reason was, well, it's
The
just a
reason they
small
stated.
area. Yeah, the reason they stated, it's just a small area. It really doesn't make a difference. This has to be effective, should be statewide. No, the real reason was the panic council members that were on the news with panic in their voices going, there's people outside. They're outside my house and they're protesting and they have guns. The Akron City Council members panicked because they saw people out exercising their First Amendment rights because they did something that was uncalled for, unconstitutional, and oppressive, and the little people dared to show up and say, we're not happy with you.
So we should go forward with our plans to be out front of Scota's house.
Why not? It's your right.
Found her address.
But I'm just saying that when we listen to them on the radio, or on the radio, on the news that night, and there she was. She had panic in her voice, this councilwoman. They're out on my street. They're in front of my house. They've got guns. I called the police. I don't know what they're gonna do. She was all worried because protesters were in front of her house. She was one of the ones that put forward that ridiculous bill.
Well,
And
you
there
know
was-
why she was worried? Because the protesters that she hangs with is like Black Lives Matter. And when they come to your neighborhood, they tear everything apart.
So you think
No.
she may have thought that the others were that? Okay, well, that's okay. We won't tell her any different.
Yeah, they went, some other
They
council
use the same
members,
brush.
and I believe they were supposed to go to the council president's house. So they decided this is getting too personal. Yeah, Skoda likes to get on TV. For whatever reason, she gets on TV more than the Cuyahoga County health czar does. She just loves to get on there. She always has this nice matching lavender lipstick with her lavender shawl or whatever she wears.
I've been driving around town. It is dead. It's a ghost town. I mean, never in my life. I mean, I was born in '63, and I remember all the rubber shops. I remember the downtown Akron before the malls even opened up and took most of the businesses out of there. It's like, man.
You mean the mom and pop stores?
I remember I was talking to my sister, and I'm like, downtown, we were in front of walking by the Civic Theater.
Yeah.
I let go of my mom's hand, and I stopped and I looked because I saw these pigeons on the curb, and I'm like, okay. Reached back over and I grabbed some other lady's hand. She's like, son, that's your mom. And I'm like, wow, that's how crowded it was.
Well, I remember Main and Market used to be just like
Yeah.
packed,
Yeah.
solid.
Down there by the Civic Theater,
And there it's,
Main and State.
yeah, and also Market,
Wolfie's and
or
O'Neill.
Market Exchange split at Hawkins. That
Yep.
used to be packed. Cars and everything, the little lights they used to have on the pole, remember the post?
Mhm.
But, yeah, nothing like it used to be, but now it's even less, yeah. But there's some areas that are quite busy. Kim and I were at Walmart in Wadsworth
Actually,
one night after curfew. And when we came out, the place was still fairly packed. I mean, it wasn't super packed, but there was still a lot of people there. So,
Yeah, we were expecting to get an announcement over the PA system. That was gonna be like at the fair.
yeah, or at least a warning saying, warning, 10 minutes before the COVID virus goes viral. Or something, you know, I mean, please make your final check.
you know what though? It's
Yeah, it was.
the Kenmore business people literally got all those empty storefronts filled up.
Mhm.
And then what happens? Boom.
Well, and there's more and more people standing up and fighting back.
I can't think of that guy's name. He was on Bernie Sanders' show, Western Pennsylvania. I think of his name, but it's like, yeah, it's like the judge got up there and just flat out said, you know, when something like this is happening, the Constitution does not get put on hold. And he's like, he goes, he told him, you know, he's like, you can reclaim all your losses because of this. And he was on Sanders' show, and he was just, I mean, he was talking a mile a minute, says, oh, we're still gonna get the governor of Pennsylvania.
Well,
And what's
So-
funny is everybody's listening to him, and I said, where's his medical degree to even talk about this? Because I remember when I was a little kid, I was, yeah,
Meanwhile, the doctors, the real people with medical degrees,
just want to shut up.
well, Dr. Norgan lost his license for
Wow.
conveniently, they issued an emergency suspension because he's a danger to the public health. Conveniently after he was a prominent speaker at a Stop the Steal rally.
That's like our family doctor. Let's see, what was it? I think it was Mike Thompson. I was afraid to get him out, and he's like, Chris, you can say you don't want him out, but you know, you can't, you know. He goes, you can't do that just yet. When you turn 18, then you can tell me you don't want this operation, but those gotta come out now. You're only 6. And I'm like, okay, looks like you're coming out. And that's how I know that.
But there's a lot to pray for about our country because we're very much seeing battles between good and evil. There are some good people out there, and there are some people trying to stand up, but is it too few, too late? Or are they going to be able to do something? And President Trump in his Christmas address referenced Jesus Christ a number of times and referenced him coming to bring us salvation and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it really sounded pretty good. And if he's on the right side, I'm not saying he's perfect, but if he's on the Lord's side, it's like President Lincoln said, I'm not so much concerned with which side, whether the Lord's on our side or not. I want to be on the Lord's side, talking about the Civil War. And I want to be on the Lord's side. And that's where we want to be. We want to be on the Lord's side. And we know God has plans and he has purposes, but for me, it still boils down to God said he would bless those that bless Israel and curse those that curse Israel. Well, here's President Trump and the people with him that clearly have blessed Israel. And here's Biden and the people with him who clearly cursed Israel. And then
He wants to move the empire
yeah,
back to
and
Tel
then,
Aviv.
yeah,
What for?
and then the hands that shed innocent blood, abomination to the Lord in Proverbs 6. And here's Trump over there, which interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii, Kim and I actually knew her cousin in Samoa, but she is now, even though she was running as a Democrat, and at one point she was a Bernie Sanders supporter in Hawaii in his presidential bids in the past, she's actually moving to the center. She has personally sponsored several bills, pro-life bills, basically. And the Democrats are upset with her. And some people are speculating, has she had, we mentioned Samoan, there's a good Samoan word, it's called malama lama, which means the light comes on. Bing! And I can see, like, the cartoon character with the light bulb going, bing, is an idea. Malama lama literally means the light shines through. And now I can see. And the idea being that she had this malama lama moment, which means her mind, her eyes were open. And maybe, just maybe, the way she was treated by the Democrats in this whole thing opened her eyes to what's going on. And she is kind of moving in our direction because she sees what's happening. I don't know, so pray for her. Because she is considered in some ways up and coming. She's young. I think she's in her early 40s, mid 40s, something like that. And she's, I believe, an Army veteran in Tulsi Gabbard,
Hawaii.
Yeah.
She wasn't the one that was cross-examining, what's her name, Barrett?
No, I don't think she was.
Okay, that was the other one.
That was that Maisie,
Okay.
crazy Maisie.
I
I think the Tulsi Gabbard thing, though, I think most people recognize she was not as far left as
No.
everybody else. Even during all the debating and everything, I think people noticed she's not.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of her support for Bernie was because it wasn't Hillary.
Right, the lesser of the two evil.
Yeah, exactly. So there's something going on there. So she's somebody that we ought to pray for because, there's, I don't know, there's opportunity to see the Lord move,
So you're saying she's a Dino?
She could be a Dino.
Dino.
And it could be, it's not like there haven't been Democrats that moved to the right in the past. I think of a interesting one, Ronald Reagan.
Ah,
He moved to the right.
That was after
And,
Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah. So,
Because Reagan was Democrat all those years, but actually, I forget.
yeah, so I mean,
He was on, I think he was on 60 Minutes, and he just got up there and said, I believe the government was behind his assassination.
yeah, so there's a lot of things going on. But the next few weeks are really key, I think, to the future of our country, because if President Trump and those with him are going to do something, the clock is running out. January 20th is essentially a month away.
Yep.
And the calendar won't wait. There are certain dates on the calendar that are there in the Constitution. And so if certain things don't happen by those dates, other things take place. And if President Trump does not act, and if nobody supports him, and Biden, with his handful of people at the inauguration, gets sworn in, assuming he can read the teleprompter long enough to do the oath, and he does get sworn in, he will, according to the Constitution, be the president, whether we like it or not. It's just like with Obama. Whether or not Obama was qualified to be president, whether or not he was legitimately born in the United States or Kenya, all of that essentially, once he took the oath, when he was allowed to take the oath, that ended. Now, if he was unqualified, then that would have been grounds to remove him from office, but obviously that never happened. So whether we like it or not, the fact that he was allowed to take the oath made him president. Same thing would happen with Biden. Of course, you know he's not going to be there long. It's going to be Harris very shortly after that. And if he makes it as far as the 20th himself, I mean, and if something happens between now and the 20th and he can't take the oath, then my understanding is, as the vice president, she would take the oath. As the vice president on the ticket with him, she would take the
Then
oath.
would
But
Pelosi be vice president, God forbid?
no, they would pick a vice president. But if something happened to the both of them, do you know who would be president? Pelosi. Assuming she becomes Speaker of the House again.
Right.
Oh,
And there's some talk that she might not have the backing because her margin in the House is much slimmer now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, who knows what is going to happen, but God does have a timetable in mind. And he is coming back, and there will be an antichrist, and there will be a global government,
Right.
and there will be a tribulation period,
That's right.
and there will be a catching away of the believers before that takes place. But we don't know how soon before. The day before, you know, the month before, the week before, the year before, we don't know. We just know that these are things that are going to happen. The Lord will be moving along with his schedule regardless of what we see or don't see.
That's right.
And according to 1 Corinthians chapter 5, we are supposed to be watching and waiting. We're not supposed to be caught unawares.
We're
And-
supposed to be doing what we can do.
Exactly. And it's also like when he came the first time. There were people who were watching and waiting. Not everybody was.
Yeah, but
And
those are the people who actually understood what was happening.
Exactly.
It was the, forget what sign showed up.
well, you had the star. I was talking about this on the radio. If you read in Matthew chapter 2, apparently nobody in Israel was aware of this star. That's why everybody's getting excited about on December 21st. And it will be a cool thing if the clouds ever part. It would
I would
be
like
kind
to
of
see
nice
that.
right now. I mean, I've been watching them because they were over more toward the southeast, and they were like this. And last time I got a clear look at them, they're like this. And what it'll be, if you hold your finger at arm's length, your little finger is equivalent to about 5 degrees worth of the sky. Yeah, or no, a degree. That's a degree. This is 5 degrees. If you hold, that's the width of your fingers at arm's length. It just works that way. And that's 5 degrees. This is 1 degree. And so if you hold your little finger out at arm's length and you look, that encompasses about 1% of the sky around you. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be 1/10 of a degree apart. So if you divide your little finger into 10 little horizontal sections, that's how far apart they'll be, which means that they'll basically look like they merge. And everybody's talking about so close to Christmas. Is this the Christmas star? But no, it's just a convergence. And last time it happened when Genghis Khan was in power. So maybe that says something about
So he's
Biden.
coming
I don't know. But actually, Genghis Khan gets, in some senses, maligned. He actually was instrumental in keeping Europe from falling to the Muslims because he exerted a certain amount of pressure on the Islamic Empire. And also, Genghis Khan was somewhat favorable to Christians.
Yeah, I heard he actually had an interest in Christianity.
Yeah. So he kind of gets a bad rap. He was certainly better than the Muslims. But regardless of that, Genghis Khan was in power the last time that it was this close. The next time it'll be this close is 2080. So if you can hang on for another 60 years if it's cloudy on Monday night, you get to see it another 60 years. But I mean, it'll still be close on Sunday night and Tuesday night, but the closest will be then. So the speculation is that the star was a conjunction of planets, that Venus and Jupiter and Mars, or not Mars, and Saturn were all lined up. So they appeared like one big star, one big bright light in the sky. And but at the risk of going through my thing that I did on the radio today, if you look there at Matthew chapter 2, you can, it's pretty easy to see that it wasn't a star or a planet or a conjunction or a supernova or a comet or any of those things, because it says in Matthew chapter 2, starting in verse 1, now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. So the wise men coming from the east, they were coming from Persia, which at the time would have been the Parthian Empire. Excuse me. And the wise men that were in Parthia, they were the descendants of the wise men when Daniel was there. The Babylonian captivity, Daniel was taken captive. He became the chief amongst the wise men.
And he explained Judaism to them.
Exactly. He gave
So
them the Torah scrolls and everything. They had all of this. And so they had Numbers chapter 24, where it talks about the star rising out of Jacob and the scepter in Israel. If you look at that, that's Numbers chapter 24, verse 17. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab and destroy all the children of Sheth. That would be Seth. So a lot of commentators believe that what the Magi saw, the wise men saw as a star, they believe was a fulfillment of Numbers chapter 24, verse 17. They believe they were seeing the star out of Jacob. Well, Jacob and Israel are the same. So here's the Magi. They're over in Persia or Parthia. They're in the east. So when it says there were wise men from the east to Jerusalem, well, Parthia or Persia was to the east of Jerusalem. So they traveled west. And when they arrived there,
They had part of India, right?
and they extended over toward India, yeah.
Okay.
So when they arrived, and their western border was the Euphrates River. But prior to the birth of Christ, a couple hundred years prior to that, they actually controlled Jerusalem and Bethlehem in that area there for a little while. Because they went back and forth with the Romans. And then finally, by the time that Herod was in power, there was essentially a peace, a treaty or whatever, how formal it was, but the Euphrates was considered the eastern border of the Roman Empire, western border of the Parthian Empire. And the Parthian Empire was every bit as advanced, actually in some ways technologically more advanced than the Romans. But because, they did not give us our history, we don't learn much about them. But they're an interesting group. So they arrived there in Jerusalem, and in verse 2 here, Matthew chapter 2, verse 2, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Well, the reason for the King of the Jews is because it said a scepter shall rise out of Israel. Scepter being like the scepter that a king would hold. So the star and the scepter in Numbers chapter 24, verse 17, is believed to have a partial fulfillment in the birth of Christ. The star would have risen up in Jacob, meaning Israel. And they said, we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. That doesn't mean they saw his star east of them. They were in the east and they saw his star, and that's why they'd come. We were in the east, we saw the star. Somebody suggested that using the term east, since east meant rising, remember when we were talking, seems like years ago now, back at Easter time, we were talking about the word Easter is not an unbiblical term to use. It's not a pagan corruption or something like that. Easter was the term used for the Oster in German, the rising of the sun. And it also was synonymous with rising. And so it was used in describing the resurrection. So Easter Sunday literally means Resurrection Sunday. It wasn't Ishtar or some pagan goddess. It wasn't that at all. It was the word used in the Germanic languages to be the equivalent of Passover. And it was the Jewish Passover was the Passover, the Hebrew Passover. And then after that was the Christian Passover that recognized the Passover lamb risen from the dead, the Easter, the rising. And so they would use the term of east, meaning synonymous with rising. And so the idea that some commentators had is that actually when they said in the east, it also meant they saw it rise. They saw this star rise up. Well, I mean, that well could have been, but the natural, easiest explanation, I believe, is that we were in the east and we saw the star. That's why we came. So where is the king? Because the prophecy in Numbers chapter 24 says that this star would rise in Jacob, and along with it, it meant there was the king in Israel. And so they called him the King of the Jews, for we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. Now, if this was a supernova or a comet or some spectacular meeting of the planets lining up and everything like that, like we're going to see on Monday night if the clouds go away, don't you think other people would have noticed it, but other than these magi, the wise men? Other people would have noticed it, but it's clear that people didn't know what was going on.
They weren't looking for them.
Well, but I mean, they didn't see any unusual star. And people in this day and age, they looked at the night sky a lot more than what we do. We don't look at the night sky. We got night, there's so much traffic lights and things like that, you can't even see the night sky. But back then, they didn't have all those lights. They went out, it's easy to tell the times during the day. Remember, we talked about that, how the day, the way you told the time during the day, they didn't have clocks. When the sun came up, that was 6 a.m. That's just what it was. That's the first hour of the day. When the sun was straight up, it was 12 noon. When the sun was setting, that was 6 p.m. It didn't matter what time of the year it was, nothing. So literally in the summertime, the hours were literally longer because the day was longer. In the wintertime, the hours were shorter because the day was shorter. But it was always 6 a.m. was sunrise, 12 noon was high sun, and sunset is 6 p.m. So that's easy to tell during the day because, okay, it's 12 noon, you wait a little while, it's halfway down, so that's halfway between 12 and 6 is 3. Well, it's not quite halfway, it's somewhere in here between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. You see how you can tell the time? It was pretty easy. You see where the sun is. And you're watching it. That's your clock. Just like we look at our watch. That's what they looked at. What do you do at night? You've ever watched the constellations at night as they fall through the sky? Orion, if you could see it, is probably right up in this area right now. And in a few hours, it's going to be in that area. And in a few hours, it's going to be in that area. Same sort of deal. They watch the passage of the various stars and constellations and stuff move through the night sky, and that's how you knew, well, how do I know it's the middle of the night? It's easy to tell when it's the middle of the day. How do I know it's the middle of the night?
Well, the constellation that you just saw rising after sunset, when that's as high up as it can be. that's
Exactly.
midnight.
It's the middle of the night. So they watch the night sky much more closely. So it's impossible that other people wouldn't have noticed if there was a supernova or a comet or a conjunction of the planets or something like that. Some even suggested a small moon was temporarily captured by the Earth. Well, why did anybody else notice this?
right.
Because look at it. He says, when Herod, here back in Matthew chapter 2, verse 3, when Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes together, or scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus is written by the prophet, and thou Bethlehem in the land of Judah art not least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Well, that's the prophecy. They understand that. That's where he's going to be. He's going to be out here in Bethlehem. All right? So he calls the wise men in verse 7. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. Well, if it was a big visible object in the sky, the scribes and Pharisees would have told him, well, there was this big visible thing that appeared in the sky back on such and such a time, date. But nobody knew. So how would you miss something that was that obvious? That means it wasn't a conjunction of the planets. It wasn't a supernova. It wasn't some small moon temporarily captured by the Earth. It wasn't a comet. It was a miraculous sign that God put in there. And if you need more proof of that, apparently the thing had disappeared. There's no indication, we sing the song, about the following yonder star. There's nothing that says they followed a star to Jerusalem. They saw the star. It was in the direction of Israel. It was so unusual that they searched and they came to the conclusion that it was the fulfillment of the Star of Jacob in Numbers, and that it represented the scepter rising, a king being born in Israel. And so now they make their journey, and it's probably a year or more later that they arrive, and they're in Jerusalem. And so Herod starts to ask them, well, when did you first see this? Because they're not seeing it right now. And then it says that he sent them to Bethlehem, and you drop down to verse 9, it says, when they heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. Now, Bethlehem is like 4 or 5 miles, I guess, I was thinking it was to the east of Jerusalem, but actually to the south of Jerusalem. So now, if you think about it, if you're over here in Persia or Iran, and you're looking way off there in, Bethlehem and Jerusalem, it's like the same exact point from your vantage way out in Persia. But when you got there, the star reappears and it leads them. Now they follow the star, and they follow the star down to Bethlehem. And the Bible says in verse 9 there, which they saw in the east, and they heard the king depart, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. So that implies they hadn't seen it. Now all of a sudden they see it again. So they're rejoicing. The star's back. We're on the right track here. And now they follow it, and it goes, which implies the star is moving. And I said this on the radio. If anybody's ever been driving down the highway late at night, and you see a star or something out in the sky way far ahead, or even the moon, is it possible to drive and get underneath it? No. It's always ahead of you, isn't it? You're always heading towards it. It's always there. And even if you're going in the opposite direction, it still looks the same. because our vantage point going across this little bit of the earth, compared to billions of miles, it's nothing. And so it's always there. It's not going to come and stand over it. You see a star out there, tell me whose house it's over. It's not possible, is it? What house is the moon over? That's a lot closer to the earth. What house is the moon over?
All of them.
Go find the house that the moon is hovering over. And this one goes right to a specific house. It goes there. It says it goes there and stood over where the young child was. This implies this light moved and stopped. It appeared when Jesus was born. They saw it. They said it came from the direction of Israel. It's so unusual. We think it's the fulfillment of what's in the scriptures, the ancient scriptures that came from, what was Daniel's name? Belteshazzar, I think it was. It came from Belshazzar, yeah. It came from Belshazzar. And remember, he was the greatest of the Magi. And we were told to watch for this. And there it is. We need to go because the scepter is rising in Israel. Let's go check this out and bring gifts fit for a king. And also they were supposed to recognize people who were born of the line of David that could serve as the ruler of the Parthian Empire, who bore the title King of Kings, because he ruled over other kings. So they come looking for him. The star's gone. And now all of a sudden, after meeting with Herod, the star reappears. That's why they have great joy. And they follow the star. And where does it go? It hovers over one particular house. Not the manger, not the stable. The wise men were never at the stable with the shepherds. I mean, it makes a nice nativity scene, and everybody's probably got that nativity scene with the wise men, and there they are offering their gifts. And there's only 3, right? That's not true either. But probably with a huge number of people traveling with gold and frankincense and myrrh. And we know they didn't get there until well after Jesus was born, because remember when Jesus was born, they had to go to the temple and they made the poor man's offering for Mary's cleansing. If they'd had all the gold and the silver and the frankincense, or
Turtle dove, right?
gold, frankincense, and myrrh, huh? The turtle dove, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If they'd had all the wealth that was given to them here by the wise men, they would have given something more substantial. But they gave the offering of somebody who didn't have much. So now it's a year or so later, and they're still in Bethlehem. They rented a house, apparently. They're staying in this house, and the star comes and stands over the house. The wise men now come in. They offer their gifts. And what's interesting in verse 11, and when they were come into the house, then they saw the young child, not the infant, the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Now, God warns them not to go back to Herod. And that's what we see in the next verse, of being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod. They departed into their own country another way. But also look at the warning to Joseph in verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. So, guess what funded their trip to Egypt?
The gift from
The Magi. And enabled them to have the money they needed to leave and to go down to Egypt and to live down there for a period of time. It cost money to travel back then, just like it does today. And so they took the money and they left. And so it's kind of interesting. So everybody's excited about the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, saying it's the Christmas star. Well, no, it's not. It's nice that it's appearing right now. It makes people think about this. Yeah. But the Christmas star was something it could have been an angel. that appeared as a point of light in the sky. It could have been a supernatural light that God put into the sky, because when he led the nation of Israel through the wilderness, remember, a pillar of fire by night, God led them. So it could have been that. Some suggested it was the glory of God shining forth from the stable when Jesus was born, but surely other people would have noticed that. It appears that the Magi way off in Persia were the only ones who noticed it.
And it took them a year to get there.
It took them a while. Well, they had to get everything together. They had to search the scriptures and make a determination. And yeah, and then they finally got there. So it's very interesting when you think about it. So, but I think it was just a miraculous light. And we talked before, any light in the sky was a star back in the ancient days. Didn't matter whether it was a planet or a comet or a star that we would normally think is a star.
It's just the planet with the sunlight reflecting back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what a planet is. But
So the sun is
star,
actually the
yeah.
only star in our
Yeah.
solar system.
in fact, anybody familiar with the flower, the aster? It's a round starburst type of affair. You know, they're different colors. It's called aster because that gets back to the root word for star. And just like you have astronomy, see, it's the root words in there. And but it was any point of light in the sky. So a planet, because it would kind of slow down, sometimes have what they call retrograde motion, meaning going backward, it was called a wandering star. And then a comet, because it had the streamer coming off of it. Remember the comet a few months ago? And they called that a hairy star because it looked like somebody's long hair blowing in the wind, coming back from the face of it where it was bright, going back in the wind. And then falling stars, I think you can guess what those are, meteors, because it's a point of light that falls down, or shooting stars. And we call that, so we use that same term today, shooting star or falling star. We know it's not a gas giant with a thermonuclear engine in the center of it coming to the earth. We know that. But we still use the term star. And in the ancient days, the term star meant basically any point of light in the sky. So if a point of light appeared suddenly, they called it a star. That's their way of saying there's a point of light in the sky. I don't recognize that point of light. It's a star that I don't recognize. So wouldn't it be interesting if you moved somebody from that day up to today and you took them out at night and you saw, you know, the airplanes going overhead? I wonder what they would call that.
Flying stars.
Flying stars.
The thing about it, some stars don't even emit visible light.
Well, that's true.
You know, there's others, you know.
Mhm.
Black hole.
The black hole,
You know,
darker
neutron
stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of astronomy, did you see we lost the Arecibo
Mm-hmm.
radio telescope?
Whole thing collapsed down in the center, and
Pretty spectacular.
yeah, because they had,
It's a shame we lost it. but-
yeah, because they.
It had two or three strands had broken over the past several months before the catastrophic.
Because it's like a big dish.
They hadn't used it for a long time.
Yeah, but it's like a big dish, and you got these cables. You ever see where they do like the sports stadiums where they have the cables across? You know, the way they have the camera go across there. That's what this thing was like. It had these cables, and it held up the focal point because like a big parabolic dish, and these cables held up the receiver at the focal point. And yeah, the cables finally snapped and then come down and crashed into the panels. And, oh, it's a mess. You're right. It's pretty incredible when you think about
They
it.
have the other ones out west, what, SETI or?
Well, there's several of them in various parts of the world. Hawaii's got a big one. There's some big ones in like Australia, and I think Italy's got one up in, there's a mountain in Italy's got one or something like that. But there's a number of them. But it's amazing when they put up the Hubble scope that was able to do as much as one of those big dishes can do. You know, actually more.
Yeah, because
And
it's
now
now
they've got-
dark.
Well, it doesn't have the Earth's atmosphere between it either.
Right. There's no,
So,
what is that? Glare or shine or whatever they call it.
yeah, there's a lot of advantages to being outside of the atmosphere in order to to do that.
Well, I think it's probably an archaic piece of junk by now.
The Hubble, yeah, I mean, it's
really.
Yeah.
they put up
They
another
put up,
one
they
to
put up some
replace
other
it.
updates on it
Yeah,
periodically.
and they actually used it.
The web telescope.
Yeah, but they actually used the Hubble longer than they expected to. Especially when they first put it up, they found out it had a little deformity in the mirror, and so they actually made glasses for it. It's like, you know, those of us that wear glasses, we can understand that. They actually had to put glasses on the Hubble, and then when they did it, it corrected because when they cast the mirror, it had to be like virtually perfect. And it's like it had astigmatism, I think. You know, you got astigmatism on your glasses, they have to grind the lens just right for it. So
Oops.
the Hubble was almost Hubble.
Yeah.
What space shuttle took that up? Reagan was president when they did that.
There were parts of it. A space shuttle took up the fix for the lens. Or was it a regular rocket that did it up? And then they worked on it after they got, I don't know exactly. I don't remember.
I remember because Johnny Carson used to joke about that all the time.
It's been up
I
there
had
for
a
a while.
Hubble day. It's like,
A Hubble day. But
there any more on the global reset, Pastor Al?
Actually, yes, I see a little bit more. Okay, remember talk about how they want to use the masking and everything to make compliance? Have you noticed that, and not just here, Britain and other parts of the world, if you get the vaccine, you think, I'm okay, I'm safe. Or if I had the disease, I'm okay, I'm safe, I've got antibodies now. I don't need to wear a mask. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I don't need the social distance. Yes, you do. I can go out and, no, you can't. The same restrictions that people without vaccinations have,
That's how I know.
you
it's-
still have to have,
Yeah. I mean,
even with the vaccine. So at this
What
point,
good
then,
does the vaccine
what's
do
the
then?
vaccine doing?
well, that one doctor got a very, he said,
It's conditioning.
there's we're off like almost 300,000 deaths compared to the same time as last year. And I think he was using October numbers up until that point.
Yeah, there's been several things back and forth.
Yeah.
I think we're right about the same as what we've had because the number of heart attack deaths has declined
Cancer.
because they're called COVID deaths. Colorado, anybody see the story that in Colorado, what did they say? 40% of their COVID related deaths, or maybe it was some, they're gunshot deaths.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So somebody must have been shooting COVID bullets at people.
Yeah.
COVID
In
bullets.
this perspective, at least that's
Gunshot deaths.
Unless
Not
that
40%,
virus
it must have been, what is it?
firearm,
Yeah, almost the same amount of
it
deaths
goes
last
with
year as this year.
Exactly. Now, somebody's trying to say, no, we're 200,000 more deaths so far this year because if we look at how many people have died so far,
It was really.
and we extrapolate over the next few weeks, and what they do when they extrapolate over the next few weeks is instead of extrapolating like this, they're extrapolating like this, an exponential curve, not a straight shot. And so they're trying to say, oh, we're going to finish the year with a huge number of deaths more than last year. So far, we're not really there.
Yeah.
We seem to be about the same. In the mortality rates, average age of death has not gone down.
How can they say that the regular flu has gone down 98%? How can they justify that? I mean, it's so.
They lie.
Because that Chinese thing was a way of adding.
They're
The
lying.
virus cured the flu.
That's right.
That's what it is.
The virus chased the flu away.
COVID-19 cured the flu.
COVID kept you from getting the flu.
Coronavirus has got the curb on the virus mob.
Now, to be perfectly honest, staying away from people will reduce the spread of the flu because what do they tell you to do during flu season? If you feel sick, do what?
Stay
Go
home.
cough on everybody, right? No, stay away, stay home. And so people are doing that, so it may not be spreading the flu as much as
Well,
normal.
and the flu is not as contagious as COVID. So,
No, so if you're staying home, and
yeah, so if you're doing the precautions for COVID, they're gonna be more effective against the flu than they are against COVID.
but if somebody dies and they have COVID in their system, then it doesn't matter what they died from, it's a COVID death.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
I don't mind if they say it's with COVID,
Yeah.
that's fine. But when somebody gets shot and they say it's a COVID death,
They had COVID a month ago. It's not even with, it's after COVID.
well, as long as they had a positive, yeah, then it's a COVID death. When somebody has a motorcycle accident and he's tested positive for COVID, it's a COVID death.
Yeah, yeah.
When they slipped on the COVID virus and it caused their bike to spin out, right?
They get pushed down a flight of stairs.
It's a COVID death. They slipped on the virus.
An elevator shaft.
Yeah.
Something falls on them, huh? That must have,
Yeah.
virus weighed it down.
That's how the governor knows, when you're at a bar, get out of there by 10 PM because that's when COVID
COVID's
shows up.
coming for you.
That's right. It's waiting.
Yeah.
There's waiting out there. But no, now you have to stay away from everybody for Christmas. And Kim pointed out something really good, and probably because she works with people who are terminal, is what led her to this. But if you think about it, she said in a couple of months, a few months, it's going to be March, right? People are going to realize we lost a whole year.
Yep.
We lost a year of celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, all kinds of things.
Proms,
And
whatever.
for many things that we lost the last time to celebrate those things with some people. Because think of it, people who, like I said, because Kim works with people who are terminal,
No more than 10
when you're coming to the holidays like right now, we recognize a lot of the people that Kim works with, this is the last Christmas that they will celebrate with their families.
The last
Thanksgiving was
Christmas
the last
they'll celebrate
Thanksgiving.
Or their last Christmas ever, and if they
Yeah.
celebrate
Yeah,
it without. Yeah.
And people are gonna start waking up saying, this wasn't that bad of an illness, and I missed out my grandparents' last Christmas on Earth, and I missed it. I missed out on my grandparents' last Thanksgiving on Earth. I missed out on their birthday. They missed my birthday. The last time that I could have celebrated with them and been with them and told them that I love them. For the last time, I didn't get to do it because I was so fearful of nonsense.
Weddings and funerals.
Yeah, weddings, funerals, all these things. And in fact, I went to a funeral not too long ago, and it brought to mind, this whole idea that there are people who are worried about having a funeral.
Is that Muslim's funeral?
Hmm?
You were saying something about when you.
Well, Bruce Musselman's funeral.
Yeah.
The funeral park, it's outside. Not the funeral park, the cemetery. It's outside. They would only let there be 10 people present, including the Pastor Restacco that preached the graveside. They would only we're outside. Only 10 people were allowed to be there. That's ridiculous. Now,
Even causes of funerals. We think of funerals, we think, well, he was 97, it was his time to go. But think
Yeah.
how many suicides there are.
That's
they're increasing.
well, and there's all this, what I call the secondary COVID, stuff, not just the suicides, but the abuse. I mean, you have people who are in abusive relationships who are being forced to stay in the home with those abusive partners.
There was
And
a gentleman who came on and, I don't know if it was Facebook or something, but he said, COVID killed my 12-year-old son, but not the way you think it did. So his son was a gamer and was in like the top 3% of the whole United States and was up and coming as to, how those guys can make $1 million a year nowadays, But he wanted to get more money to upgrade his system. So he was cutting grass and all these other things. Well, COVID happened. all that income stopped. One day, his daughter walked into his son's room, and his son was hanging in his closet.
Mm.
And there was a note there that said, I couldn't do this, I couldn't go out and make money
Yeah.
to upgrade this virus. You know, and the guy says, it killed my son, but not the one
Yeah.
you
Now, in responding to what you said, I hate to use the term devil's advocate, but I'm gonna sort of do that using a compilation of things that I've had told to me, either online or in person, or things that I've read. Well, you're just being insensitive. Don't you care that these people are suffering from this virus?
But there's a lot more stories
Yeah,
like that.
I know, but do you
those
see what I'm
people
saying?
Suffered from the
But do you
virus,
see what
but
my
there's so
point
much
is?
Denial.
You see what my point is?
Yeah.
They're making that as to be, that kid's death doesn't matter. That family's suffering doesn't matter.
Now, if
Because
that
there's
kid had
somebody
died
over
of
here that's got
corona-
COVID. If he had coronavirus, tested positive, then we can talk. And so they're devaluing the
Right,
death of
right.
people like that.
Right.
Right, because one
Something's
death is a
seriously
tragedy.
wrong with that.
One death is a tragedy, 100,000
Yeah.
deaths is a statistic.
But 100,000 non-COVID
Of
deaths
course,
doesn't matter.
of course.
Listen,
The only Black Lives That Matter are the ones that are killed by white police officers.
Yeah,
The rest they don't care.
exactly. And so what's that say about the other Black lives? What, they don't matter. And that's what gets me, that's what's so horrible about this, is because the story that you just related should make most people say something is wrong
Mhm.
here, that we're doing this to our young people. And yet there's people out there who will say, well, what, do you want grandma to die? You're insensitive. And they would say that to that guy, I'm talking about like if you were the father.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What they've done to our society.
Mhm.
I should find
Grandma's
this here.
eventually gonna die one way or the other, but you're robbing of people spending time with grandma in the meanwhile.
Right. Right.
And so it's like she's already died because you can't spend any time with her.
Mhm.
When my sister works, they had one patient, she was 104 and she died all by herself.
What a
She had
shame.
no family there. And it was like that, it's like I started talking to her about it, and boy, she got so like, I'm like, relax now. It's like, this is what the state wants. And she's like, that's so damn unfair. And I'm like, well, you know, that's the governor for you.
The state wants to enslave us, but that
Huh?
doesn't mean that we have to go quietly.
Yeah,
They all think they're still in control.
right around
They think they're in control of our destiny, we can take care of everything.
Yeah.
And they're
I
so
wouldn't
wrong.
know.
Yeah.
I just wanna know.
Look,
from Rocky Road.
I posted something online because I
Yeah,
had
listen to this.
I had seen something on another group that I'm in,
Like that's.
and I tracked it down. I found some more information, and I found an article in Psychology Today, which listed 20 things suggesting that your partner is controlling, in an unhealthy fashion. Okay.
It's gonna be good.
Now, anybody ever watch any of Dr. DeWine, Daddy DeWine, whatever you want to call him? DeWino, or Rhino, as some other people call him.
Rhino swine to wine.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to read every one of them because some of them obviously aren't going to apply as much. But I said, how many of these can you relate to? Isolating you from friends and family. Chronic criticism, even for small things. Veiled or overt threats against you or them.
Check.
Making acceptance, caring, attraction conditional.
Hmm.
An overactive scorecard. Using guilt as a tool.
Yep.
Oh, here's a good one. Spying, snooping, or requiring constant disclosure.
Yep. Check.
Well, it wasn't DeWine just saying you're supposed to rat on your neighbors now? Yeah, I like what Laverne Gore posted about that. She said, well, wait a minute. What a way to divide the community. Because neighbors should be watching out for each other, not spying on each other. Because what if you need to borrow something, a tool or a cup of sugar, or you're going away and you want somebody to watch your house while you're gone, or maybe watch your kids are out playing and they see somebody come up that, you want neighbors watching out for each other, not spying on each other like the German Stasi had people doing.
Who determines who's a Karen and who's a whistleblower?
Uh,
They're both snitching. but
I guess it could
one's good,
depend.
one's bad.
I guess it could depend on what the subject is that you're talking about, or the situation.
Volume.
Just like
Yeah.
whether protests are peaceful or not is determined by whose
Yeah.
side they're
Here.
protesting for.
Let me give you a few more of these. Making you earn trust or other good treatment. Presuming you're guilty until proven innocent. Our illustrious Herr Skoda said, you need to assume everybody is COVID positive that you come in contact with. You need to assume everybody is sick. Getting you so tired of arguing that you'll relent. How about this one? Churches can meet, but I don't know of any church that would condone putting their people in danger. The one here, making you feel belittled for long-held beliefs. Making you feel you don't measure up or unworthy of them. Teasing or ridicule that has an uncomfortable undercurrent. Or how about this one? Anybody tried to call the governor lately? I mean, you can go to his site and you can get in touch with him, send him an email or a text or something, call, leave a number, can't you? Real easy. I mean, you mean you're saying his number's not on his website anymore?
And even if
You
you
can't call him, you can't email him?
cannot call me because we're having the coronavirus pandemic. You see,
All right.
you cannot contact him, he's too busy.
Oh, well, here we are. Inability or unwillingness to ever hear your point of view.
Yeah.
Check. Pressuring you toward, wait a minute, I don't have it. I'll pretend this is a mask. Pressuring you toward unhealthy behaviors. Yes.
How about this one? You get a job, you haven't had a job in a long time. People belittle your achievements. Somebody says, oh, now you can bring more germs home. You get a job. It's something good instead of feeling
Well,
good, happy for you. It's just negative. Everything's negative.
here's the last one on the list. Tell me how this sounds compared to what you just said. Thwarting your professional or educational goals by making you doubt yourself.
See,
This is from a Psychology Today article that was written in 2015. 20 signs your partner is controlling. Unhealthy and dangerous patterns aren't always obvious. I've long since learned that stereotypes don't apply when it comes to controlling partners. Toxic relationships can sneak up on almost anyone.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? I think we need to divest ourselves of a toxic relationship.
That sounds like
Yeah.
an outline for a new Declaration of Independence.
I know. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it says the controlling behavior on a part of a partner knows no boundaries. Yeah.
One thing I don't, can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, one thing I don't understand about the election, they mentioned about Dominion
Mhm.
and how overseas it affected the vote. And President Trump said there were a lot of uncounted ballots underneath tables and polling places and all that. And I don't think I quite understand
The
what's going on.
It's called election fraud.
Well, they had the one video you could watch where you saw the suitcases
Yeah.
underneath.
Now, Bob, Facebook fact checkers said that that's misleading. We don't know that happened. They might not have been suitcases. They were probably actually boxes with wheels. So that's misleading, Bob. I have to fact check you.
Okay, then it was suitcases of wheels with ballots.
Now, you're just assuming they're ballots because they took them and scanned them into the ballot machines.
Many times.
Yes. But this stuff is out there.
Watching.
If you're following what's going on, there's no time to run this through the courts and recount everything and change it all back. And I don't think that that's President Trump's end game. They're merely trying to get the information out. I think he's laying the groundwork for something different. Because it's clear the courts aren't going to do it. When
Right.
you have the
Right.
Supreme Court,
Yep.
challenged, and Justice Roberts appears to be compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have all these other situations, Maricopa County, Arizona, they subpoenaed the ballot machines, the readers, and the Maricopa County Board of Elections voted to ignore the subpoena.
Wow.
The state requested them. You have places, well, Arizona is also a state where the
Cindy
Democrats
McCain is
sent
going
their
crazy.
electors.
Cindy McCain.
Yeah, the Democrats sent their electors, but the Republican legislatures put together another list of electors who sent their ballots for President Trump. Same thing happened in Pennsylvania, Michigan, several other states. So what is Vice President Pence going to do when he stands up in there and all these two things, and he says, well, Arizona, I've got this set of electors sent me this, and this set of electors sent me this. Which one am I going to open and count? And you know what the Constitution says in the 12th Amendment? The vice president opens an envelope, essentially, and the count is made. And he says to himself, this was sent by the Republican senator or legislatures. This was sent in support of Biden.
The Constitution says that the legislators have the
I'm going to open
ultimate
this one
responsibility, yeah.
because it's the legislators who have the responsibility, like you said. And then the Democrats, what are they going to do?
Let them know.
Oh, I object. They might do exactly what the Republicans are doing. And so now, it's Arizona. It's one of the first ones. I mean, it's toward the top of the list. They go alphabetical.
And
So now,
hopefully the Democrats won't have enough state wvotes to turn it down.
well, what'll have to happen is the Senate will go over here, and the Senate is going to debate. Should he have accepted the legislature's electors or the Secretary of State and Governor's electors? Which one? They're going to spend their time doing that, and then they're going to have a vote.
Yeah.
In the House, they're going to say, let's debate this. Should he accept this one or this one? And then they're going to have a vote, and the vote apparently is going to be on state lines. Each state delegation gets one vote. And maybe 30 Republicans say, states say, oh, we think he should go with the legislature because that's what the Constitution says.
Exactly.
And then over in the Senate, they say, well, the Constitution does say the legislators are to pick the electors. So constitutionally speaking, until McConnell gets up and says, that's why we're going with the other ones. No. But I mean, we're hoping for the best. Exactly. And so they say, we're going with this one, the one from the legislature.
And I can just see the disappointed Democrats then saying, we're going to the Supreme Court, iron this out.
But they can't at that point. I mean, they can try.
Well, they can say it, whether they can do it or not, they can say it.
So now they got rid of the votes for Biden that Arizona has, and those votes now go to Trump.
That would be good.
And so they go through the whole list and they get to Michigan. It's the same thing. And they get to Pennsylvania. It's the same thing. And they get to Wisconsin. You see, you're Georgia.
So they sent two each?
Yes, in the contested states,
It's contested, yeah. The-
alternate electors.
I
The
didn't see that.
Yeah,
Well, that's
state
because-
legislators sent alternate, electors.
You wouldn't know if you listen to the mainstream media.
I
They
know,
don't
I
talk about
listened
that.
to it.
Yeah. And
Doesn't one congressman and one senator have to object?
correct. And I think the Congress, the representative has to go first since they're in the House and it's supposed to be the House county. So he has to And there's several representatives now who say that they will object to some of these votes. Then a senator has to say, yes, I object as well.
But only, I read that only a senator elected said he will do it. How about a sitting senator?
Well, he will be a sitting senator
When did it get seated?
at the beginning of the year. January 2nd or 3rd, I think it is. It's not on the first, but it's like the 2nd or the 3rd, I think, is when they get seated.
Who is that?
I don't know the guy's name offhand, but.
Tuberville from Alabama.
Okay, and there's other ones who have indicated, I think Cruz has indicated, not come out and said it directly, but I think he's indicated, just like Jordan has indicated that he will, as representative.
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul said, yeah, so,
Senator Rand Paul, right? Okay.
yeah, so
He is
So there's a real doctor.
Real one.
I mean, the Senate and I believe it's 8 in the House.
So
He
there
isn't so
are.
for sure, but he's making.
There are multiple senators and multiple representatives who are indicating that they will object,
Despite Mitch.
despite Mitch McConnell, yes. Well, maybe he won't be the majority leader after this too. That would be nice.
Would you good?
That was, forget what
Alan
commentary said. He goes, some of these senators have probably woken up because, he referenced all the people of West Virginia who got on the back of that one Democratic senator from there. He said, you're gonna vote Trump, right? And he did.
Yeah, so I mean,
So
we
it's
don't
like-
know what's gonna happen. I mean, I would say we're in uncharted territory, but Thomas Jefferson became president because the Congress picked him.
And I
on
looked that
January
up,
6th. Yeah.
that's exactly what we're into right now. So that's pretty cool.
So it's not uncharted territory. And if it goes beyond the 6th, all the way till the 18th, this is not unconstitutional because it's allowed for. These are the checks and balances that they allowed in.
See how smart they
So-
were back then?
Well,
A
yeah.
lot of common sense.
So the mainstream media is saying Donald Trump engaged in unconstitutional
That cracks me up.
refusal to accept. No, it's not unconstitutional. He is following the Constitution
Yeah.
exactly. Now, if he declares martial law,
Yeah.
then
That's
that's
the 14th
superseding the Constitution for a time, short period of time, where you can do things that the Constitution doesn't allow you to do specifically.
The Constitution allows him to do that too.
Yeah,
He can suspend the writ of habeas corpus and
like President Lincoln did during the Civil War.
Plus, he put the Chief Justice.
Well, according to the 14th Amendment, if the Chief Justice is getting Chinese money and the Chinese were affecting our election, then the Chief Justice can be removed from office and never allowed to serve. He couldn't even be a county clerk somewhere.
Couldn't be a
Because
dog
he can't
catcher.
be in any position, or military or civilian, where he has to take an oath to defend the Constitution.
Good.
Unless the House votes 2/3 to allow him. So if he goes out and he's serving, he wants to join and moves to someplace out in the middle of nowhere, population 3, and they have 3 township trustees. It's the only 3 people in the town. He cannot even be the township trustee there unless the US House votes and allows him to. That's what the 14th Amendment specifically says. 2/3 majority of the House has to allow it.
Look at that right here.
Mhm.
I pulled this out and I just said, you ever read this?
I'm sorry?
Robert's
Oh, we don't know that, but we have reason to suspect there's
Yeah.
multiple things compromising him. And it doesn't have to be Chinese money because let me get it here.
Didn't Bush Jr. appoint him?
Yeah, he did.
Yes. It's a disappointment.
And Hugh Hewitt crowed about how, oh, he's a staunch conservative. I clerked with him. I know him. He's gonna be fantastic. You don't have anything to worry about with him. Yeah, the point, this is why it's good to have a constitution. You can get these things. These are easy to get. I mean, but yeah, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, who having previously taken an oath, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same. So if they've engaged in insurrection or rebellion, what does that say about Maxine Waters telling people to fight? What about that congresswoman and representative in Michigan that gave her a little video where she said it's time for the soldiers to do what they're supposed to do or whatever, go out and attack the Trump supporters?
Yeah.
Isn't that insurrection?
Yeah.
She should be, according to this, removed from office, because this is no person shall be, and it's any civil office or military office, federal, state, county, local, anything. It says that they engage in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Now, if the vote was confirmed to be affected by the Chinese, and somebody makes the argument that Chief Justice Roberts urging the court not to take up this case and potentially overturn these fraudulent votes, what was he doing? Giving aid to the enemies of the Constitution in the United States.
Aiding and abetting.
Aiding and abetting the Chinese in that, so he doesn't have to take money. He could be there, right there.
Is that section 14?
Yeah,
Section
Amendment
3?
14, Section 3.
Doesn't at the end though say unless allowed by Congress or
Well, it says they cannot serve in any office where they have to take an oath to defend the Constitution. That's township trustee. They couldn't serve as a poll worker, right? Because what do you have to do when you work the polls?
You know,
We swear an oath to defend the Constitution. He couldn't even be a poll worker unless, here's the exception, but Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, I'm sorry, I missed that, of each house, remove such disability, not just the House. The Senate also has to have a 2/3 vote. So Chief Justice Roberts gets removed from office. He relocates somewhere out in the middle of the boondocks in some place, population 3, and they need 3 township trustees. And he's, I'm going to be a township trustee. And he gets ready to take the oath, and somebody says, wait a minute, you can't until the disability is removed. So Chief Justice, former Chief Justice, would have to contact whoever is the Speaker of the House and say, listen, I want to be, there's only 3 people in our town, and we need 3 township trustees. And I'm the 3rd person, and I can't take the oath until you convene the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, and a 2/3 majority has to allow me to serve as township trustee. And then he's got to go over to the Senate and convince the Senate to do the same thing. So what are the odds that the House and the Senate are going to want to spend time helping former Chief Justice, become township trustee in the middle of nowhere in a town of 3? And he's going to get a 2/3 majority in both houses.
Seems you can't help them anymore, why would they?
Exactly. He probably wouldn't get the time of day, much less the 2/3 majority.
That's what the grumblings are over there. They're like, all of a sudden, Chief Justice Roberts is like, he's front and center for some reason.
Well, and to know that the left is suddenly starting to realize this, there's one representative who said that Trump supporters should not be allowed to serve in public office because of the 14th Amendment. They're citing it now.
But like everything they say, it's twisted and backwards and
yeah,
upside down.
why?
Right, hasn't the Maxine Waters rant become so common ground?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just freaks out about everything and nothing gets done about it because
That's the problem.
every
right there.
single day, 10 times a day, and you're like, who can fact check and who's gonna send these people to jail and who's gonna follow up and do all these things? If everybody's doing it, that's what they're kind of looking at is, well, we can't throw everybody in jail, although they all
Most of the
should
Congress
be in
would
jail, but we can't throw everybody in jail so nobody does anything.
Well,
One on the system.
yeah, and that's kind of what they've done. But this gets back to the thing in the scriptures in the Old Testament about the Old Testament laws of people being punished so that others would hear what happened and they would fear to do the same thing. Because if you look in chapter 19, because the other ones have to do with capital crimes, but chapter 19 isn't a capital crime necessarily. But in Deuteronomy chapter 19, it deals with false witnesses. If a false witness, in chapter 19, verse 16, if a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition. And behold, if the witness be a false witness, and have testified falsely against his brother, then shall ye do unto him as he thought to have done unto his brother.
Amen.
And it says this at the end of verse 29 or 19 here. 19, Deuteronomy 19:19. So shalt thou put the evil away from among you. So that's part of the purpose right there.
Yep.
This person is evil. They're committing evil. Put them away from us.
Yeah.
Then he says this in the next verse, verse 20. And those which remain shall hear and fear, and shall henceforth commit no more any such evil among you. The problem with our laws, and I don't know where it's at exactly, maybe we can find it, but there's a passage in the Old Testament that talks about a punishment not being given
Yeah.
speedily.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes 8:11.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And let's go to that right here real
Good
quick.
one.
Ecclesiastes 8 in verse 11, because sentence against an evil work
Amen.
is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil.
Right.
How can Swalwell, we talked about him earlier, get away with being set on the House Intelligence Committee, privy to some of the most sensitive classified information that our country has, when he is so compromised? Well, it's because Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese intelligence agent as her chauffeur for years who listened to her talk about all kinds of classified things. And it's because Hillary Clinton had unsecured servers that her emails went over it, and every single email she sent on that unsecured network was courtesy copy to the Chinese military intelligence headquarters. Everyone she sent and every email that came to her was courtesy copy to the Chinese military intelligence headquarters. And that includes emails that came to her in her official capacity as Secretary of State from the President of the United States in his official capacity as the President of the United States, while he was saying, oh, I didn't even, I read it in the paper. Oh, I never knew that she had something lying through his teeth.
Yeah.
And she's going like, oh, all this technology I just didn't understand. What an idiot. If she couldn't understand that, why should she have been president?
Right.
She's not in jail. Feinstein was not removed from her positions. Swalwell's still, I guess, sitting there.
Yeah.
And
We don't have to arrest all of them, but at least a few of them.
Yep.
but sentence
Yep.
against an evil work isn't being executed at all, not just speedily, it's not being executed at all. And so where is the case of people hearing and fearing and doing no more such evil among us?
I think there's one in Proverbs too, that's called the swamp.
Yeah, and yeah, the swamp. So everybody's
There's enough of
seeing,
them doing
oh,
wrong.
we get away with it. There's no punishment.
Hopefully
You know.
that's a future event.
Yeah,
And it may not be
yeah.
now, but hopefully in the future. if
Safety
it's
in
some-
numbers.
This is,
You know,
yeah,
it's like
Yeah.
when you're driving down the road and everybody's doing 80 miles an hour, you know, when there's one police officer, it's hard to get, you know, when
Yeah.
the whole traffic is going 80.
Yeah. The whole herd of wildebeest, you know,
So
only a
when
few
you
get caught.
stop someone, do you know why I stopped you? Yes, because everyone else was going too fast.
And you're the only
Oh,
one.
yeah.
I'm the only one you can catch.
It's the old saying about the cop on the corner, and as you're speeding by,
Mhm.
he's yelling and screaming at you. Well, you don't care, he's standing there.
Yeah,
You just keep speeding.
but when you
But if
see
he
him on
gives
a,
you a ticket, Then you go, wait a minute, this just cost me money, maybe I
Yeah.
better do something about this
Or you're,
speeding thing.
yeah, or you're driving down the road and you see one up ahead and you see all the red brake lights go out. And everybody slows down and drives by them, then they speed up later on.
When I was a kid, I went to Perkins and people used to speed up and down Mall Avenue all the time. So Akron police got there by Forest Lodge and they had a guy sitting on a motorcycle
Mm-hmm.
and he was just reading them off, red car coming, 45, and Mall Avenue's 25 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And they would they'd be at the circle and they'd have the one police car and they just blocked the road with one police car. And it's like the guy on the motorcycle and the guy in the police car, he walked up to the cars and said, you can go around, you're getting a ticket for speeding. And just literally, it's like they had like 65 drivers. Guess where they were going? Perkins Middle School to drop their kids off. And they were speeding. They're doing, one guy, I guess he got doing 45 in the school zone. And it's just like, they were just like, can't have this.
Yeah. But see, if nobody ever gets pulled over for speeding, then nobody cares.
That's right.
But you pull a few people over and it has an effect on a multitude of drivers. One car pulled over, getting a ticket, slows everybody down as they go by. At least for a little while, they slow down.
Truly in the end times.
Yeah. So there's nobody getting in trouble for these things. There's no detriment there.
That's why they're terrified of Trump.
Yeah.
Why they hate him
And
so much.
He'll be more
Yeah.
flexible in the second term.
he'll be more flexible in martial law.
Right.
So that's where we may need that because
Yeah.
this might be the only way to bring a sufficient number of these people to task
Yep.
that we even have any kind of a hope. Of course, we may just descend into a massive confusion and then the Lord comes back. And
Yep.
For us, it'll all be moot. But we don't know that, so we have to work like, we're gonna be here for the next 10 years and pray and hope like, the Lord's coming back in the next, a few hours, hopefully. So, anyway, so that's 9:00, so let's go ahead and pray and then we'll go from there. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you again for the time we get spent tonight. Help us not to be overcome with worry and concern. It's easy to get anxious. It's easy to get overwhelmed, Lord, but we thank you that you are ultimately in control. You have a plan. You have a purpose, Lord.
That's right.
Help us to be watching and waiting. Help us to see and to be aware of your hand working in the situation around us. Protect and watch over us. Use us for your glory to be a witness and testimony for you. Help us in however much time we have left, whether it's days or years, to be faithful in the work that you've given us to do, not to be overcome with fear, but rather, Lord, to look forward to your soon return and to be found working in your vineyard, in your labor, or in your fields, Lord, laboring in your fields when you come back for us. Lord, bless now as we leave here tonight. Keep us safe on the roads. We pray that you bless the day tomorrow, and especially on Sunday for your glory. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, I need to make a quick announcement real quick. I forgot to mention it earlier. On Christmas Eve, we have our annual Christmas Eve candlelight service here at 7:00. That's Thursday, Christmas Eve, 24th. We are having the Friday night Bible study on the 25th. That's Christmas Day. I know a lot of people have plans and can't necessarily make things like that. That's fine. But we know some people are planning on coming, so we will be here on Friday night. So just wanted to let you know that in advance. Same thing with New Year's Day a week later.
Both days, 7 o'clock,
Yes.
Thursday and Friday.
Yes, 7:00.
But we're not having anything.
Nothing New Year's Eve though. Yes.
On Thursday, your candlelight service from 7:00 till how late?
Usually it's about hour and a half, I think, something like that. It's not as long as the Friday night Bible study. And what we do is we sing some, Christmas songs, traditional Christmas songs, and celebrate the birth of Christ, that way. And then I have the thing that we put together, the birth of Christ according to the scriptures. Read through that, and then we have some candles and give people a chance to light the candles, stand around. We'll have it set up with chairs like we do on Sunday. Not like this, like we do on Friday night.
What you're thankful for.
Yeah, and then share something that you're thankful for the past year or something God blessed you with in the past year. And then The only song you can't select is Silent Night, because we usually close with that as we have our candles, so that's why we don't let people pick Silent Night over the other songs.
Sing it 10 times.
Yeah, so, and then, you know, if anybody wants to bring Christmas cookies, you can almost pick up on that, Christmas cookies or something, always good. I won't restrict anybody from bringing Christmas cookies, and you don't, you know, even though the governor might be listening, you don't have to individually wrap them. As I saw in his fact sheet, things that you're supposed to do, suggestions I should say, is to send individually wrapped Christmas cookies to people.
Yeah, right.
You must have stuck in saran wrap.
Yeah. Or foil, one of the two.
Socially distanced cookies,
Yeah, hey, there you go. Yeah, spread them out, you know, 6 inches.
send them in a
Yes.
submarine.
you know.
Yes.
Sandwich, you gotta send them all back.
It's crazy. All right, well, that's what I wanted to mention, so. All right, well, God bless. If I don't see you before, have a Merry Christmas. a
Merry
blessed
Christmas, Pastor.
And a blessed Christmas, so.
Each one has
God
to be
bless.
hermetically sealed.
Who's gonna do it?
In a mason jar on Pumpkin Wagnall's porch.
Hermetically sealed envelope.
Oh, Zeke has an announcement as well.
We're still doing the Stop the Steal rallies, so if anyone wants to stand on the corner with us, with holding the truck flag and getting yelled at by people, we'll be noon to 3 tomorrow. Noon to 3 tomorrow by, I think, was it Miller and Market? Market Miller. There's some Cuyahoga County, I think there's like 8 or 9 different counties that are having stuff